troop contributing countries, and the African Union for urgent measures to support and strengthen AMISOM, particularly in the following priority areas. First, the upsurge of AMISOM by another additional 4,000 troops to liberate areas still under the control of terrorists. Second, to facilitate the deployment of critical enablers and force multipliers, as well as the provision of predictable and sustainable funding, including from the United Nations assessed contributions. And to that end, I thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for your comments on this particular matter. Third, the provision of United Nations support to the Somali security forces in order to accelerate the AMISOM exit strategy. Fourth, support the implementation of the Somali National Development Plan to enable the people of Somalia, including refugees, to go back home and participate in the reconstruction of their country. Fifth, call on the conference to endorse and support the Nairobi Declaration and Plan of Action as agreed at a special summit of IGAD heads of state and government in March of this year. I am glad to note that this conference will in addition consider the issue of humanitarian assistance following prolonged drought that has affected the entire Horn of Africa region. I hope this meeting will agree on a joint plan for the urgent extension of the necessary humanitarian support in order to alleviate further suffering of the affected communities. In closing, the government and the people of Kenya shall remain a faithful partner to the people of Somalia as we have been over the years. We will continue to work closely with the federal government, the regions, and the international community in the quest to secure peace and prosperity for Somalia and for this and other and many generations to come. I thank you.
Thank you. I thank you I thank the President of the Republic of Kenya very much for his contribution, and I call on His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia.
Your Excellency, let me begin by commending the co-chairs for organizing this unique conference. Today, I'd like to make 4 points that I think are vital, important to ensure lasting peace and sustainable development in Somalia. Number one, as you all know, our region in general and Somalia in particular has been consistently targeted by terrorist attacks, mainly from Al-Shabaab. The fight against Al-Shabaab has been progressing. Successful offensives by the Somali National Army, AMISOM, and friendly forces have driven Al-Shabaab out of many towns and villages. Al-Shabaab's popular support is waning. Its income levels are reduced significantly. Its ability to command and control of its forces is not to a level it has been a few years back. The extremist group is on the retreat, but it still has not been eliminated, remains dangerous with the capacity to launch terrorist attacks both in Somalia and outside. We must therefore take practical measures to further intensify and better coordinate AMISOM and friendly forces along with the Somali National Army against fighting Al-Shabaab. At this moment, our contingent in AMISOM in Hiran region is fiercely fighting with Al-Shabaab in Halgen, just at this moment. So you can see how much the AMISOM force is working very hard to eliminate this menace. We also need to develop a well-functional Somali National Army that can effectively deal with Al-Shabaab and progressively take over from AMISOM. In the coming few years, maybe in the coming 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, we have to make it as functional as possible. The international community should continue giving political, financial, and logistical support to AMISOM and Somalia's national security architecture to help stabilize Somalia. We in the region would continue to shed our blood, pay immense sacrifice, and do whatever is just and necessary to restore the long sought after peace and tranquility in Somalia and across the region. There is no greater contribution, no greater solidarity than this. We further need to recognize the partial lifting of UN arms embargo on Somalia as an important step forward towards creating the necessary conditions for further lifting of the embargo, as the President of Somalia has just expressed. Number two, I would like to commend the federal government of Somalia and the federal member states for the recent landmark agreement reached between them towards a genuine, inclusive political consultation in an attempt to form a stable, peaceful and democratic political process in the country. This agreement, I hope, would pave the way for the integration of federal and regional forces into a coherent national security architecture capable of gradually taking on lead responsibility for providing security with a view to defeating Al-Shabaab and rebuilding the country. An inclusive process adhering to and abiding by the country's constitutional division of power is critically important. Number three, I want to draw your attention to the fact that the entire IGAD region has been affected by the current drought and migration situations with serious political and security implications. The number of refugees from conflict and drought-affected countries in the region crossing into neighboring countries will continue to rise unless an intensified response mechanism has been put in place. The outbreak of the cholera epidemic in Somalia with spillover effects is a cause for concern as well. In this regard, the situation in Somalia calls even for more close follow-up and intervention. Number four, equally supporting Somalia's economic recovery that offers Somalis livelihood and jobs for this enterprising community and generates domestic revenue will be essential to Somalia's enduring stability and sustainable development. The government in Somalia, federal and state alike, has to demonstrate to its people that it is delivering. They should be at the front seat steering this process. In conclusion, I would like to remind the conference that Somalia will continue to need substantial support from the regional and international community. Let us empower the federal government of Somalia to be at the center of all these endeavors. Let us speak with one voice, with new partnership spirit. Let us be leather beam focused, follow one channel of intervention for regional and international collaborative action. This, I believe, is the only viable option. Otherwise, we can be sure that the progress will be so sluggish. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency very much for his contribution, and I thank everyone very much for their contributions. That brings us to the end of the opening session of the London Somalia Conference. I think people have set out a vision for Somalia that is optimistic but also realistic about the challenges ahead in building a peaceful and prosperous Somalia. And clearly essential to that ambition is strengthening national security in Somalia, and that's the subject of our first policy session. I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Michael Fallon, the Secretary.